Why are the Jewish people in Israel today? Is it random? Is it a coincidence? Or is it destiny?
Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away.
What's happening in Israel today is the culmination of Jewish history. For almost 4,000 years, the Jewish people have been living on faith. Faith in prophecies given thousands of years ago. Promises that seem irrational, promises that seem almost impossible. Every prophecy dependent on the next. If one isn't true, none of them are true.
Now in the morning, as he returned to the city, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree by the road, he came to it and found nothing on it but leaves, and said to it, "Let no fruit grow on you ever again." Immediately the fig tree withered away. And when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, "How did the fig tree wither away so soon?"
Every single one of them is coming to pass in our lifetime. Every single one of them. The first promise to Israel was made to Abraham, an eternal covenant. "And I shall establish a covenant between me and you, and between your offspring after you throughout their generations, as an everlasting covenant." The Jewish people are the only ancient people alive today. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Jebusites, the Canaanites, all of them are gone.
Well said. Because of unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Do not be haughty, but fear.
We also know that if the Jewish people don't live a godly life in the land of Israel, we're promised to be scattered to four corners of the earth. The last thing you would want to do to an eternal people is to scatter them across the world with no common culture, no common language, no internet, no forms of communication. How will the Jewish people stay Jewish? How will we stay eternal if we're scattered across the world? And yet, that's exactly what happened. The Torah tells us the atrocities and the curses that would come upon the Jewish people throughout the exile. "And you I will scatter among the nations. I will unsheathe the sword after you." The ingathering of the exiles, it's the most prophesied event in the Bible. It's mentioned over 40 times. Unprecedented in history. Never before has a nation been scattered across the world and then gathered to its ancient homeland. And yet every single prophet mentions this miraculous feat that will happen.
And now they have been returned to the land. And the land is still carrying the names of the great history of this people. It's unbelievable.
Life-threatening situation. In other words, if you went forward, it was dangerous. What about just retreating?
Whichever way, whether it's to the left, to the right, backwards or forwards, I mean, it's a minefield. We did the best we could. And we dug ourselves, we managed to expose a few and dismantle them. And it was a very slow process. But at this particular point, a very, very strong gust of wind came. Something which we could not explain at all. I mean, it was so strong that we literally felt that we were flying away. That's how strong it was. And mines that were buried 25, 30 centimeters in the ground just exposed themselves. And we didn't have to dig them out. We were just walking through them.
It was a dream that began in Oslo. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, U.S. President Bill Clinton, and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat later came together to sign a revolutionary agreement. Until Oslo, it was illegal for an Israeli to negotiate with the PLO, a self-proclaimed terror organization responsible for the murder of Jews and Israelis worldwide.
The PLO chairman Yasser Arafat, denounced for decades as a terrorist, was welcomed at the White House.
Oslo would lay the vital groundwork for each side to achieve what they wanted most, namely, a land the Palestinians could finally call their own, and an end to the terror attacks so that the Israelis could live in peace and security.
Finally, the time is approaching when there will be safety in Israel's house, when the Palestinian people will write their own destiny.
This was the Land for Peace deal, the first real step towards fulfilling the Palestinian demands for an independent Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, lands won by Israel in the Six-Day War.
Then he spoke to them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they are already budding, you see and know for yourselves that summer is now near.
The Palestinians wanted Jerusalem as the capital of their new state. The Palestinians wanted the removal of all existing Jewish homes and settlements that had developed in the West Bank and Gaza region. The Palestinians wanted to see the return to Israel proper of the descendants of the 600,000 refugees that had fled the country in the 48 and 67 wars. The Palestinians claimed that there were up to 4 million family members now eligible to make their home within the borders of Israel.
So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away.
Even though every one of these demands represented a potential threat to Israel's security and survival,
the time for peace has come.
Israel was willing to trade land for peace. Before all the Palestinians' demands could be considered, there needed to be a true sense of trust between the two peoples, and the Oslo Accords were designed to achieve just that.